The migrant crisis on the border is getting worse, but finally, the Biden administration is admitting it is a crisis. After weeks of dodging, Jen Psaki refers to a situation on the border as a crisis. My friends, we've got children packed into Border Patrol tents for days on end, according to lawyers. We've got Guatemala preparing for the eventual arrival of a new migrant caravan. We have a situation that is worse than it was under Donald Trump, yet we still see the pathetic and desperate attempts by the media to cover up for Joe Biden. Of course, I will always say Trump was by no means perfect, but the media went insane about every single thing that he did. They said he was the one running these child detention centers. He put kids in cages. Obama did that. Trump shut that facility in Homestead, Florida, down. And it was Joe Biden's administration that reopened it. I'm sick of it, man. Take a look at this story from the Daily Caller. Biden restricts Border Patrol agents from sharing information on the migrant surge with the media. They are covering up just how bad it is getting. Now, there are some journalists calling it out. In a tweet from Jacob Soboroff, he says, the Biden administration is clear about wanting to build a fair, safe, and orderly immigration system. But keeping reporters out of facilities currently overcrowded with children, preventing people from seeing what it is they want to change, doesn't help their case. Calling it out. Jacob doing the bare minimum in criticizing Biden, covering up what's going on. What you want to change? You mean what Barack Obama and Joe Biden created from 2008 to 2016, 2017? Donald Trump inherited that mess. He did not do the greatest job in the world. I'm not going to pretend like he deserves some credit because he got called out for what he inherited. He did shut down the child facility in Homestead. Now, listen, I'm not going to rag on Trump or Joe Biden over having kids in detainment. It's a ridiculous argument that comes from the press, and they did it to hurt Donald Trump. They didn't care when Obama was doing it, and now they have no choice but to feign outrage that Joe Biden is doing it. But the reality is, we don't know who these kids are with. We don't know if they're being trafficked. We don't know if these people are really their parents. That's the cause of all of this. But you see, in the media, they needed an opportunity to hurt Trump. So they said he's separating families. Families. How do you know they're families? Did you check? Okay. Some children were separated from their families. It's horrifying. I wish it didn't have to happen. Maybe there's something we can do to improve this. What about the children who are being trafficked? It's amazing to me that when MSNBC finally musters up the courage to criticize Joe Biden, they still make the tweet nice. Biden is clear about wanting to build a fair, safe, orderly immigration system. But, he's got to let the reporters in. He's shutting down transparency. He's lying to you and covering it up. And he's detaining more kids than Trump did. At least for now, relatively. We know that children are being packed into Border Patrol tents for days on end. Let's read about what's happening with this lack of transparency. The Daily Caller says, the Biden administration reportedly told border officials they could only share limited information concerning the increase of migrants arriving at the southern border, NBC News reported Thursday. Border Patrol agents and sector chiefs were told to deny media requests for ride-alongs with agents and that the Washington office must provide approval according to 4 current and 2 former Customs and Border Protection officials, NBC News reported. Officials who keep track of the number of migrants in custody were instructed not to share the information with anyone. The officials were not authorized to speak on the topic and requested anonymity, according to NBC News. Officials described the restrictions as an unofficial gag order. Now I'm going to pause for a second and say this. What Joe Biden is doing with these kids is not the apocalypse. I already mentioned that there are difficult situations that presidents find themselves in, and I wish we didn't have to do this, but perhaps we do. So I'm not going to just rag on Biden for and feign some tribal outrage. No, I'll actually defend the man, his administration, as much as I don't like them, because I don't know what else you do. I'll also point out the media does not have a good track record with using anonymous sources. So forgive me if I don't believe you when you publish your garbage. What I can say, however, is that the media has held Trump. It was a double standard when it came to immigration, and it's time to criticize what's happening on the border. And I believe it is Joe Biden's policies rescinding some of the instructions and orders that Trump had put in place that is making the problem worse. Donald Trump had the Migrant Protection Protocols, fancy name for the Remain in Mexico policy. If you come to the border and you want asylum, you must wait in Mexico. It made sense. Joe Biden's getting rid of it. At a time when we're dealing with a pandemic, when people are told they cannot travel without being quarantined and the borders are being restricted, Joe Biden's administration is releasing COVID patients who cross the border illegally into Texas. It is hypocrisy, and it is a problem for us. The Daily Caller says, the officials said the regulations were given verbally and not through an official memo, NBC News reported. Some agents have posted videos of mass arrests and surges of migrants without permission, according to two of the officials. Dozens of migrants and children are seen crossing the Rio Grande into Texas using a raft, video shows. The video is reportedly recorded in March and came from a border agent, according to two CBP officials. The Department of Homeland Security and CBP have not allowed media tours of facilities, including the Donna, Texas processing facility, which is reportedly holding unaccompanied migrant minors over capacity, according to a CBP official, NBC News reported. So I'll tell you this. They lied about Trump all day and night. I don't see why they would lie about Joe Biden. I don't necessarily understand what their intent is. Maybe they want to get rid of him, or maybe Joe Biden is actually doing these things. And that's the sad reality of today. We don't know exactly what their narrative is or why they're pushing it, other than self-interest and maybe to make money. I don't see how they expect to make money going after Biden, but maybe they realize without Trump, they need negative news. People aren't going to click on things if they're boring. And this is it. Maybe they will turn on Biden. They say, quote, the Biden administration knows full well that it has created an unprecedented humanitarian and border crisis in just its first full month in office. I am sick of this and doesn't want to be shown to the American people and the rest of the world. Federation for American Immigration Reform Press Secretary Matthew Trageser told the Daily Caller News Foundation. President Biden stated that in a democracy, the public deserves as much transparency as possible. The so-called gag order on Border Patrol agents does the antithesis of that. The administration must take responsibility for its actions and not erode public trust. I'm tired. I'm angry. We see Joe Biden fumbling and bumbling and calling Kamala Harris the president. He is incapable of handling this job. He is making all of our problems worse. Ford now moving some of their vehicle projects from an American processing plant, to a manufacturing plant, to Mexico. Keystone shut down, jobs lost. Joe Biden is a fumbling, bumbling moron. And now the border crisis is worse. And this is according to left-wing organizations. Y'all voted for this. What did you think was going to happen? They didn't like Donald Trump. They called him a racist. They hated him. And you know what? It's partly Donald Trump's fault because the responsibility is always with the individual, in my opinion. Donald Trump didn't have to tweet like a jerk and say a bunch of dumb things. But the media absolutely went to town, taking every opportunity to smear and defame him. And here we are. Donald Trump did it right. The border wall, initially, I will say his plan probably didn't make a lot of sense. What got done was good. Reinforced bollard fencing in key areas. In some areas, triple layer defenses. A big, beautiful 30-foot concrete wall from sea to shining sea. Not so much. That was a dumb idea. But a border barrier makes sense. It inhibits people coming on these journeys. It's not about what Trump said, that they're not sending their best. No, I'm not going to get into that one. I'm going to talk about the kids wandering through the desert and dying. I'm going to talk about now the unprecedented numbers of migrant minors being kept in these facilities over capacity. And Joe Biden did it all, made it all worse, opened the door, encouraged these caravans. And now they're going on dangerous journeys where they may die instead of fixing the problems back home. Not every one of them can. But most of the people who come and claim refugee status are not actually refugees. They're economic migrants. So perhaps, we can help them back home. That was the idea, I guess. We provide aid to these countries. Thus, these people will live better there and not go on these dangerous journeys and risk their lives. It wasn't happening. Trump threatened to cut off the cash. He implemented some new protocols, and it worked. And Joe Biden, in a month, destroyed all of that. Why? I can't stand these people, these well-to-do liberals and progressive who think they're smarter and don't read the news and don't read the sources and just gargle fake news all day and believe the trash. And now here you are, it's your own making. Media requests to tour the privately operated Trump-era facility. I love it as a Trump-era facility for unaccompanied migrant children in Carrizo Springs, Texas, were denied due to COVID-19. A Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families spokesperson told the DCNF. The Office of Refugee Resettlement is not hosting media tours of unaccompanied children facilities currently due to COVID-19 pandemic. An ACF spokesperson told the DCNF, if media tours resume, we will send a media advisory. Multiple media outlets were denied requests for access or photographs of the facilities holding unaccompanied migrant minors. NBC News reported. One photograph of a mother and child during a health screening at a facility was released Tuesday, though the DHS did not provide other frames showing the conditions of the facility. Quote, across the federal government, certain employees are designated spokespeople for their respective agencies, and public statements are vetted to ensure accuracy. This standard and process has been followed at DHS since the department's inception and across bipartisan administrations. Customs and Border Protection continues to publicly provide the same monthly data on the same schedules as it has since 2014, a DHS spokesperson said. The Trump administration allowed members of the media to tour facilities where separated children were held in June 2018, according to NBC News. The administration also allowed some media ride-alongs during the pandemic, but theirs has not been a single one since January 20th, a current CBP official said. Part of maintaining the public trust is to communicate regularly and often, a former official said. Another current official who served during the last 3 administrations said the restrictions are similar to how the Obama administration operated, NBC News reported. It was more restrictive under Obama than under Trump, when there was more autonomy for each region to speak to the media. The second current official said CBP did not respond to the DCNF request for comment. Amazing. Under Donald Trump, we had more transparency than under Joe Biden. Well, we've got this from NBC Los Angeles. Children packed into Border Patrol tent for days on end, lawyers say. Hundreds of immigrant children and teenagers have been detained at a Border Patrol tent facility in packed conditions, with some sleeping on the floor because there aren't enough mats, according to nonprofit lawyers who conduct oversight of immigration detention centers. The lawyers interviewed more than a dozen children Thursday in Donna, Texas, where the Border Patrol is holding more than 1,000 people. Some of the youths told the lawyers they had been at the facility for a week or longer, despite the agency's 3-day limit for detaining children. Many said they haven't been allowed to phone their parents or other relatives who may be wondering where they are. Despite concerns about the coronavirus, the children are kept so closely together that they can touch the person next to them, the lawyer said. Some have to wait 5 days or more to shower, and there isn't always soap available, just shampoo, according to lawyers. All right, whose fault is this? Is this Joe Biden's fault? Unfortunately, the answer is no. I know many tribalists will want to blame Joe Biden for the conditions there. It's just not the case. It's not entirely Donald Trump's fault or even Obama's fault. It is the fault of a combination of factors, namely with Democrats. They continually incentivize these dangerous journeys. You had the migrants show up wearing T-shirts saying, Biden, please let us in. My friends, I believe the United States should take in every single person in the world. I'm going to say it again. I believe the U.S. should open its borders, not open borders, but should open its borders to legal, controlled migration to every single person for application. Here's what I'm trying to say. If the U.S. brought in 300 million people, I don't care. What I care about is that we go through the correct process. We screen them. We place them properly so they thrive and flourish. And we make sure that they understand what the Constitution means, what the rules are in this country. Now, let's slow down a second. The reason why I'm saying this is, for one, we do need to compete with foreign adversaries. I believe our country is fantastic and great. I believe the Constitution is amazing, and we have a great culture here. Is it the best in the world? Well, in my opinion, I do think America is the best country in the world, though I've been to many, and I understand why others might view their cultures as better. It's preference. So objectively, I would say, hey, when in Rome, right, do as the Romans do. There are people in certain countries that think they have a better way of living. I don't agree with all of them, but I can certainly understand some countries, for sure. When you go through the legal process to become a citizen or to gain entry to the country, we have limits, we have timetables. I am not advocating for opening the borders immediately and letting everyone in the world come into the country right now. What I'm saying is immigration is a good thing when it's done properly. The problem is the Democrats have conflated illegal immigration with legal immigration. When someone comes to the country legally through a process, we can make sure they find work in a meaningful place where they flourish and we flourish. Adding taxpayers to the tax base, hey, it's a good thing, right? The problem is we have exploitative immigration when it comes to, what is it called, the H-1Bs or whatever. We have the high skill immigration issue where companies make up fake reasons to import high skill labor from other countries instead of hiring American labor. Then we have the problem of Democrats claiming that illegal immigration is just regular old immigration, and companies exploiting this by hiring people at dirt wages below the minimum wage, effectively creating a serf class. That is nothing but problematic for us. So let me say it again. Perhaps we couldn't allow 600 million people to enter this country because we would not be able to process that properly to make sure everyone flourishes, which means everybody should be welcome to apply to come to the border to state their case. We'll then go through the motions to make sure it's done properly. Unfortunately, the Democrats have done nothing but say forgiveness and citizenship and, decriminalization and catch and release. What ends up happening is people embark on dangerous journeys. Why? I mean, think about it. If you live in a country that is not the U.S., you understand why the U.S. is awesome. You've seen it on TV and you have this image in your mind. You probably think it's way better than it really is, to be completely honest. The shining city on the hill and all that stuff. Now you're thinking about where you live. If you live in Brazil, for instance, I believe several years ago, their GDP per capita was like $8,000 per year. In the U.S., the poverty level is what, like 14,000? So if you work at Burger King or McDonald's, minimum wage, well, you're probably going to get $10 an hour. You're going to be doing a lot better than people who live in the Central and South American countries. They're then told the Democrats are incentivizing the opportunity for them to come to the U.S., so of course they're going to take it. The danger is they could die, and they're not going to get what they think they're going to get. Now, recently we did see Biden finally say, stop doing this, stop coming, you're not going to get in. But the policies, they're more important. Actions speak louder than words. And so long as they keep saying this, more importantly, it's not just Biden. So long as Democrats push for these policies, so long as California does as well, they're going to keep trying to come. And I don't blame them. I don't. We all know how amazing this country is. We all know what the Constitution means to us and how awesome it is. We know that we have prosperity and opportunity. So of course, everybody wants to come here. But we have a capacity. We can let more and more people in so long as we're keeping track so that everyone flourishes. There was a video I saw. There was a venue. This is a crazy video. Music venue. And a fire broke out in the venue. Everyone ran full speed to the front door to escape, and they smashed themselves in. Fluid dynamics. The people in the back were pushing so hard trying to get out. They smashed everyone and they're just mashed. People were asphyxiating. They couldn't breathe. They couldn't move their chests. It's crazy. They couldn't get out. There's a capacity issue. Now, in this video, there was a back door. And the guy who knew about the back door walked out the back door calmly and peacefully and then filmed what was happening. It was a crazy video. I could be getting the details wrong. It's been a while since I've seen it. Side note, whenever you enter a building, know where your exits are. Everybody ran to the entrance because it was the only way out they knew. And then they got stuck. The reason I bring that up is that it's not the same, but it's similar. We don't want every single person rushing in and just breaking down the barrier and then getting jammed in because then everyone suffers. We want a calm and orderly fashion where we can track and properly accommodate these children. When the children try to enter illegally, they get put into overcrowded situations because we don't want them being trafficked. We don't know if they're sick. And we got pandemic restrictions, especially. If these children came through Mexico, these minors, went to a proper facility, gave them their information, they would not be in this detention center. They would be chilling in Mexico. Not like it would be that much better, but I would say it's probably better off these kids are in a border town as opposed to crammed and overcrowded facilities where we're trying to figure out what's going on. Instead, we have the latter. And Joe Biden is basically trying to cover it up now because, well, the Democrats have made their bed with this one. Obama started it. They called him the deporter in chief. That's on you. Donald Trump inherited it. Donald Trump was under pressure. He allowed the press in. See, the mistake Trump made was he often played things right, letting the press in. Guess it was a mistake because now, when it comes to Biden, we don't know what he's doing. We don't know what they're doing. And the media is just going, well, we like Biden, but... Well, they tried to attack Trump for what Obama did. And now Biden gets to reap what they have sown. It's a problem down there. It's a crisis. And it's expected to get worse. Some are saying it's already the worst we have ever seen. 100,000 people in February. And you know why? You combine all of the press, everything negative they said about Trump, and that deterred people. And then once they heard that Biden was coming, and that Biden was the candidate of open borders and all that stuff, and he said no deportations, they ran full speed. Joe Biden said no deportations in the first 100 days. That's basically telling everybody, you've got 100 days to get here. Well, he lost that battle, but the message still rang out. And that's on him. We'll see if the media cares. Joe Biden is a failing leader, and it's getting worse. Let's talk about China. I don't know if you saw that story, but it's bad. That'll be coming up at 4 p.m. So thanks for hanging. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be at 4 p.m. at youtube.com/Timcast. And we'll talk about what's going on with the U.S. and China and the weakness that we are putting out in the world. I'll see you all then.